Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor and members of council. This is an item coming out of our Public Works Department. This is to replace a specific component in a portion of our water system. It dates back to about 2008. It has actually functioned well and well past its original kind of design timeline. But because of the nature of the component, it is proprietary and only available from the manufacturer of the system is through a specific distributor. So since it essentially constitutes a sole source procurement, we are bringing it to council for consideration, and Public Works Director Fisher or I are happy to answer any questions about the proposal.
And ask all council members if they have comments or questions. Madam City Clerk.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Boersma?
I have no questions at this time.
Councillor Restucci?
No questions.
Councillor Henry?
No questions.
Councillor Hicks?
No questions.
Councillor Farmer?
No questions.
Councillor Hart?
No questions.
Okay.
Thank you. What is the desire of council on this item?
I move to approve.
A motion by Mr. Henry.
I'll second.
And was that Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
So we have a motion by Councilor Henry, seconded by Councilor Hicks, to authorize the city manager to purchase a replacement cell from Denora Water Technologies LLC for our sodium hypochlorite generating facility in the amount of $14,119.45. Any debate on this issue? Hearing none, I will ask the city clerk to go down the roll call and allow the vote.
Deputy Mayor Boersma?
Yes.
Councillor Restucci?
Aye.
Councillor Henry?
Yes.
Councillor Hicks?
Yes.
Councillor Farmer?
Yes.
Councillor Hart?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor, you have 6 yes votes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item C, crime scene investigation unit van purchase. Consider authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with the city of Toppenish to purchase a 2004 Chevrolet Express van in the amount of $8,350. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor and members of council. This is a interesting partnership between the City of Sunnyside Police Department and Public Works Departments, and then the City of Toppenish. We learned recently of a vehicle that Toppenish was considering surplusing. It's something they purchased several years ago when they were staffed differently and actually had a crime scene investigation unit or team. But they have not actually used this vehicle for that purpose or frankly used it at all for several years now. And rather than let it go unutilized, they contacted and we began having discussions around the possibility of a sale transfer to the city of Sunnyside. We do have a crime analyst, and our detectives are often called out to crime scenes to process evidence. As fans of any of those CSI TV shows will tell you, it's it can they dress it up on TV to make it look a little more exciting than it is, but it's painstaking work. It requires careful skill and attention and the right equipment, and putting that together and having that assembled conveniently and efficiently for our detectives and crime analysts would be a big help to the functioning of the department and our ability to then use, collect and use evidence in the prosecution and, of crimes here in Sunnyside. The price being requested by Toppenish is very reasonably within the Kelley Blue Book range for a vehicle of this type and configuration. We've also added in the estimated costs of title, transfer, licensing, insurance, and tax to bring to give you a full cost estimate. But we're recommending this. I also want to point out and commend our fleet mechanic. Ivan did a really nice job in assessing the vehicle, looking over its maintenance records. Toppenish did a good job in maintaining it, but it is in very good condition, and he did a pretty thorough inspection and test drive of it before we signaled that we would be open to doing this with Toppenish. With that, either Public Works Director Fisher and I think Commander Bailey and I are all available if you have questions.
I'll go down the list and give council members an opportunity to ask their questions.
Counselor Hart,
Now, you did say that we already have somebody who's in charge of the, what was that, crime scene technician?
So we have on staff trained detectives as well as a crime analyst whose responsibilities include processing crime scenes for the city. And so, yes, we have individuals qualified to be able to do that work and make use of this equipment.
Thank you.
Counselor Farmer,
No questions.
Counselor Hicks,
No questions.
Counselor Henry,
No questions.
Counselor Restucci,
No question, just a comment. Nice job on this. This is how we do things by working in together in the valley. And I'm glad to see that this is a win-win for both Sunnyside and Toppenish.
Thank you.
and Deputy Mayor Broersma.
Yeah, thank you. I do have one question. And I know the city manager mentioned they've had mechanics go over the maintenance records and take a look at everything. We do have a lot of really old, high mileage vehicles on our fleet here in Sunnyside, and I just want to make sure, what kind of mileage does this van have on it already?
It actually has fewer than 4,000 original miles. I believe the figure, I'm gonna look that up, 3,870.
Do we know how many
Very low
hours?
mileage. Pardon?
Do we know how many hours it has on the vehicle?
I don't know. Director Fisher, did they go into the hours? I know it's been in their fleet for a number of years.
Yeah, I didn't pick that up out of their spec, what the hours were. I'm sure it's got some hours on it because I'm sure when that thing's out, if they've got equipment going inside of it, the vehicle is running while they're processing a scene. So, but yeah, they haven't used it in several years. So I'm sure it'll have high hours, but low miles.
Thank you.
The only question I had. So, what is the desire of council on this item?
This is Councilor Stucci. Move to approve.
I would second Councilor Restucci. Move. Okay, so we have a motion by Councilor Restucci, seconded by Mr. Henry, to authorize the city manager to execute an agreement with the city of Toppenish to purchase a 2004 Chevrolet Express 3500 van in the amount of $8,350. Any debate on this item? Hearing none, the city clerk will now go down the roll call and get the vote.
Counselor Hart,
Yes.
Counselor Henry,
Yes.
Counselor Farmer,
Yes.
Counselor Hicks,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Broersma,
Yes.
Counselor Restucci.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor, you have 6 yes votes.
Thank you. Item D, COVID-19 Emergency Declaration Extension. Consider approving a resolution extending the proclamation of emergency and adopting findings of fact and procedures for managing the COVID-19 public health emergency. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor and members of council. This is a familiar recurring topic. We are bringing it back every couple of months to kind of check in on our progress in the pandemic and the status of the various state orders and directives that we're subject to. Right now, we are in phase 3 of the state's reopening framework. The next update to that, I believe, is coming up on May 3rd. And so what this ordinance does is continue most of the adjustments that have been made by council in the past related to operations, and then tailored in the last couple of orders to take advantage of the flexibility that is offered under these different phases. So as we potentially continue advancing, it allows us to make those adjustments to operations efficiently and hopefully fairly quickly. Unless council has questions, there's not a lot of differences in this one other than add a reminder. It's kind of goes without saying, but it's probably good to have in there that we want to make sure that as we get ready for the second round of federal funding, as Commissioner LaDon Lindy mentioned earlier, we'll want to make sure that COVID relief funds are administered in accordance with applicable federal laws and regulations. So did acknowledge that in here. With that, be happy to answer any questions.
The city clerk will now go down the list and give everybody the opportunity to ask their questions. Madam City Clerk.
Councillor Restucci,
No questions or comments.
Councillor Henry,
No questions or comments.
Councillor Farmer,
No questions.
Councillor Hart,
No questions.
Deputy Mayor Burisma,
I have no questions.
and Councillor Hicks.
No questions.
So what is the desire of council on this item?
I move to approve the extension.
Motion by Mr. Henry,
Second. This is Councilor Restucci.
seconded by Councilor Restucci. Any debate on this item? Hearing none, the city clerk will go down and get the roll call vote. Madam City Clerk.
Deputy Mayor Burisma,
Yes.
Councillor Hicks,
Yes.
Councillor Henry,
Yes.
Councillor Restucci,
Yes.
Councillor Hart,
Yes.
Councillor Farmer,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor, you have 6 yes votes.
Thank you. Item E, Sanchez annexation petition. Consider approving a resolution authorizing the circulation of a petition for annexation for parcel number 22102441447. And such petition provide for the proposed zoning of R1 low density residential and that the parcel to be annexed will assume city indebtedness. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, members of council. This item and the next one are both coming to us out of the planning division. Mike Shuttleworth is available for questions, and I believe the property owner on this particular parcel is also available or present in the audience. In March of this year, the owner of this property submitted their notice of intent to petition for annexation of their parcel into the city of Sunnyside. State law sets out a very specific process whereby cities may consider annexations. The first step is for the property owner to notify the city of their intent to circulate a petition, and that's brought to council for consideration. If council agrees to authorize that circulation, then the property owner can seek additional support on their petition, and take that forward for consideration to the Planning Commission through council and through the Boundary Review Board. All those steps laid out in the Growth Management Act and in our planning process. Mr. Ramos here has satisfied the first step. It has been reviewed by staff and also by the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission's recommendation is to recommend that if it is annexed, that it be zoned R2 medium density residential, which fits well with the surrounding properties that are already in the city. With that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
I'll go down the list and give everyone the opportunity to ask any questions or make any comments they have. Madam City Clerk.
Councillor Restucci,
No questions at this time.
Councillor Henry,
No questions. I just had a comment. I just want to say thank you for the planning committee to get all of these petitions and a lot of the laws changed, which I know they've been working really hard on. So thank you for your hard work, and I appreciate all of the work coming to us, the council.
Counselor Hicks,
No questions at this time.
Deputy Mayor Burisma,
Just one, I've had some computer issues. What is the physical address of this property? So I have a better idea of where it is.
Oh, good question. Let me try to get to the map. Oh, thank you, Jackie. You got there. It is just off.
Beckner Alley.
I think this is the one off of Fairview. Is that correct, Mr. Shuttleworth?
No, this is the one off of Beckner
Beckner Alley.
Alley.
Sorry, I went too
So
far.
it's 1518 Beckner Alley.
Okay.
1518 Beckner Alley.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. That gives me a better mental picture of what we're talking about. That's all I had.
Counselor Farmer,
Could I be advised on exactly what is allowed in the R2 zone?
Mr. Shuttleworth, can you speak to the specifics of what is permissible in R2 residential?
Yeah, and I guess I'll compare it to the R1. R1 is a larger lot, whereas the R2 is a smaller lot. I believe it's 4,300 square feet. And it does allow a duplex, and in certain conditions can allow multifamily. Whereas the R1 does not.
And I believe the property zoned south is also R2. All of the property south of this site currently.
Right. The Planning Commission's recommendation on this one was it to be R1 because it's adjacent to R1.
I'm sorry, I misspoke in that. You're right.
I have had several residents over the years express to me their concern of the amount of high density housing that is in that particular area. I think that we need to look at that. I think that most people would not complain with duplexes, but when we start building large apartment buildings in there, it's going to denigrate the neighborhood, at least in their opinion. And I would have some concerns with allowing multiple family dwellings such as apartment buildings in that area.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, my apologies, and to Councilor Farmer. As I mentioned, I misspoke about which parcel we were discussing. The parcel currently under consideration would be zoned R1, based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission, not R2. It would be low density residential. Apartment complexes would not be permissible in this area.
Thank you.
Apologize for that confusion.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. I was just about to make that clarification myself, so thank you for doing that.
and Counselor Hart.
Isn't this part of the areas that a couple of years ago we tried to do an annexation of the whole north boundary there? I can't remember how far away. I don't know that it went all the way out to Dandel, but it was Beckner Alley and beyond. I'm just wondering if this annexation is going to fall under the same kind of scrutiny as the other, the neighbors in that area are not going to like having an annexation into the city. It looks like on the map that the other side is already R1, if I remember correctly. So it should be a nice fit if the neighbors will allow it. But I think it'd be a nice fit in that area.
Mr. Shuttleworth, am I correct in indicating that because this is a single property annexation, the risk of concerns from neighbors would be reduced versus what sounds like it may have been a larger attempt at annexation of multiple parcels in the past.
That'd be correct. So this is strictly up to the council on the public hearing, and, you know, you've got one, well, I should say two property owners, his and hers. So the surrounding property owners will be notified when we do the public hearing for the petition.
All right, thank you for the questions, everybody. And just a comment from me on that one. I do remember, since I used to live over on that side of the city of Sunnyside, there was an attempt by the city to bring a certain portion of the north side of Sunnyside into the city limits, and it was met with a great deal of resistance from the residents there. But this situation is different in that it is the property owner who is petitioning to bring their own property within the city limits and not the city's motion to bring in an entire area. So I think that we're going to meet less resistance here.
Mr. Deputy
Okay,
Mayor,
so what is the desire of the council on this item?
Mr. Deputy Mayor. Mr. Deputy Mayor. Hello?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm not getting a response back. I apologize.
I'm sorry, is this Mr. Ritucci?
Yes, it is, sir.
Go ahead, Mr. Ritucci. What do you comment?
Okay, so I wanted to just make a point to council about this annexation petition. Excuse me. This is just the beginning of a very large process. And council is going to have an opportunity to weigh in again, and the planning commission is going to hold a public hearing in regards to this. So there's going to be a lot more information handed. This is just the start of it. And we're going to see more on this, and we'll have an opportunity to weigh in on this again, not just tonight.
Thanks, sir. So again, what is the desire of council on this item?
I move to approve.
A motion by Mr. Henry,
I'll second it.
we have a second by Ms. Hart. So motion by Councilor Henry and seconded by Councilor Hart to approve a resolution authorizing the circulation of a petition for annexation of parcel number 22102441447, and such petition provide for the proposed zoning of R1 low density residential, and that the parcel to be annexed will assume city indebtedness. Debate on this item. Hearing none, I will now ask the city clerk to take the roll call vote.
Councillor Hicks,
Yes.
Councillor Restucci,
Yes.
Councillor Henry,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Burisma,
Yes.
Councillor Farmer,
Yes.
Councillor Hart,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor, there's 6 yes votes.
Thank you. Item F, Ramos annexation petition. Consider approving a resolution authorizing for the circulation of a petition for annexation for parcel number 22102441447, and such petition provide for the proposed R2 medium density residential zoning, and that the parcel to be annexed will assume city indebtedness. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor and members of council. My apologies. This is the information I was referencing and looking at when I was trying to answer the questions earlier, and that resulted in my confusion over what we were actually, which one we were talking about. This is the petition for Mr. Ramos for parcel just north of Fairview Avenue. We've covered kind of the basics of the process that we'll be following. Here again, it's a single parcel. It is being requested by the property owner. And in this instance, because of the surrounding area, the Planning Commission, consistent with our current comprehensive plan and the county's plan, is recommending R2 medium density. With that, the planning supervisor will, I'll let him take the questions on this one.
And give everyone an opportunity to ask their questions and make their comments. Madam City Clerk.
Do you mind if I ask a quick question, Mayor? The motion in our packet has the same parcel number as the previous item, but the resolution says a different parcel number.
Oh, thank you.
Is that,
We missed that.
that
Must have been a
right?
cut and paste.
Yes.
so, okay.
Thank you for catching that, Clerk Rendria. Can, for council's awareness, the correct parcel number is 221-0243-1406.
Do you need me to
Okay.
repeat that, Mayor? Deputy Mayor? Okay.
Thank you, I got that, Mr. City Manager.
Okay, I'll start the roll call for the questions. Deputy Mayor Burisma,
I have no questions.
Councilor Restucci,
No questions.
Councilor Henry,
No questions.
Councilor Hicks,
No questions.
Councilor Farmer,
My previous comments would apply to this.
Councilor Hart,
And this looks like this is on the same side of town as the other, the Sanchez, annexation request, correct? Just a little further down the road.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
yes, that's everything.
All right, thank you, everyone. What is the desire of council on this item?
I would move to approve the petition.
Motion by Councilor Henry,
I'll second the petition.
second by Councilor Hart, to approve a resolution authorizing for the circulation of a petition for annexation for parcel number, and I'm going to try to get this one right, 221-024-31406, and such petition provide for the proposed R2 medium density residential zoning, and the parcels to be annexed will assume city indebtedness. Madam City Clerk, if you would go down the list for the roll call vote.
Deputy Mayor Burisma,
Yes.
Councilor Restucci,
Yes.
Councilor Henry,
Yes.
Councilor Hicks,
Yes.
Councilor Farmer,
Yes.
Councilor Hart,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor, you have 6 yes votes.
Thank you. Item G, listing agreement extension. Consider authorizing the city manager to execute an amendment extending the existing brokerage services agreement with Almond Commercial Real Estate until October 30, 2021. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor and members of council. The Deputy Mayor's summary of the title of this item pretty much is my summary as well. Council is aware that we have an existing relationship with Almond Commercial Real Estate for marketing and advertising the Monson properties. The agent, Mr. Hodkinson, recently requested a further extension of that agreement, and so we're bringing that to council for consideration. It would be in effect through October.
The city clerk will now go down the list to make sure of any questions or comments council might have.
Councilor Hart,
I was curious, how long has the Almond Realty had the contract for the Munson property?
I believe since July of 2015. That's when it was first entered into between the city and Almond.
And have they been successful in any way with finding a tenant?
They have brought to the city a number of offers over the years. I'm aware of at least 2 since my arrival in 2019. But no, we haven't closed on a sale of any of the parcels out there.
Thank you.
Councilor Hicks,
No questions.
Councilor Henry,
No questions. Just a comment. I might have to agree with Councilor Hart on this. I feel like one of my main goals coming on council was to get that Munson property moved, and I just would like to see more effort on that particular issue as well. Thank you, Julie, for bringing that up.
Councilor Restucci,
No comment.
Deputy Mayor Boersma?
You know, Councilor Hart and Councilor Henry's comment on that is a valid comment. Obviously, if you've been paying attention to real estate over the last year or so, property's been moving extremely fast, and yet we haven't seen a great deal. I, at this point, am in favor of extending the contract until October. However, after that, we might need to have a conversation about that.
And Counselor Farmer?
My sentiments are exactly the same as Councilmember Hart's.
Everybody's done.
All right, thank you, council members. What is the desire of council on this item?
Deputy Mayor President, I'd like to make a motion to authorize city manager to execute the amendment extending the existing brokerage agreement with the Almond Commercial Real Estate until October 31st, 2021.
Thank you. Motion by Councilor Hart,
I would second that motion, Mr. Chair.
seconded by Councilor Henry, to authorize the city manager to extend the existing brokerage services agreement with Almond Commercial Real Estate until October 30, 2021. Any debate on this item?
Deputy Mayor, the only thing is I do think that we do need to take a very close look at success rate, and versus what we've been told we will get. So I do want to just mention that.
And I do not disagree with you, madam. All right, so we have a motion for the debate. The city clerk will now go down and take the roll call vote. Madam City Clerk.
Deputy Mayor Boersma?
Yes.
Counselor Rasucci?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Hicks?
Yes.
Counselor Farmer?
Yes.
Counselor Hart?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor, there's 6 yes votes.
Thank you. Item H, Otis Avenue right-of-way. Discuss options to either sell or lease the unimproved section of Otis Avenue. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Members of council, this is kind of the first part of a two-part discussion and action conversation that we would like to have with council. The objective tonight is simply to present information and give the council opportunity to ask questions, and if there's any follow-up information, we'll be able to provide that at the next meeting before council considers taking action. This involves a kind of a sliver of road, what was road or paved area, located in between the former Seneca processing plant and our city wastewater treatment plant. And Public Works Director Fisher, working with our engineering staff, have done a little bit of archaeological investigation into historical records. The current owner of the former Seneca facility came to the city with a request for consideration of turning over that strip of land to their facility as part of their operations. And in fact, Seneca used to make use of this strip quite extensively when they were operating. But as we got into the history of it, we discovered several things. The northern half of this small strip, which was once upon a time laid out as potential extension of Otis Avenue, the northern part of it, 30 feet wide, was integrated into the parcel that we use for our wastewater treatment plant. The southern half of it, 30 feet wide, technically belongs to the Port of Sunnyside. It was something that they had essentially granted an easement over to Seneca back in the day. And so we actually have 3 different property owners involved in this: the city, the port, and the new owner of the Seneca facility. And so the city Public Works Department, we really don't foresee a need for this for future extension of Otis Avenue. And Shane and staff have kind of looked at what might be ways that we could potentially move this over to the Seneca plant operator so that they can move forward with some of their business development. That's kind of my high-level summary, and then I'll let Shane get into some of the details with you, and then open it up. We'll open it up for your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Casey. So basically what we're looking at is if we decided to keep this 30-foot strip of property on the north side, it really serves no operational purpose for us. Like Martin alluded to, we will never extend Otis Avenue through and cross the canal. Because that would take industrial, commercial traffic into a neighborhood. So that's not really a viable option for us there. The 30-foot also serves no purpose for us at the wastewater treatment plant either. Talked with Raul Sanchez. We looked at maybe could we use it for drying beds? Could we use it to expand maybe an aeration basin? All of our capacity for those operational needs all fall within the fence, within the plant itself. And so we see really no reason and no use for that strip of property. And, and of course, that's up to council to decide what we do with it. Either we declare a surplus, short plat it, and sell it off. Or option two is we enter into a long-term lease with the former Seneca facility owner, the new owners, and basically retain all the easements, access easements, utility easements. There is a 10-inch water main that runs east and west that basically goes from the canal all the way out to South 4th. We would retain that easement, for maintenance, obviously. We do have a gate that sits on the south property line of the wastewater plant. Obviously, retaining the access easement into that area allows us to get access to that gate to bring in larger pieces of equipment, anything that we may need to do for maintenance. And of course, there's also an SVID access easement, so they get access to the canal. So we would retain all that if we did a long-term lease. We would also retain all that if we decided to sell that piece. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
If I could ask, Mr. Fisher? If we retain those rights either way, what is staff's recommendation?
Personally, I'm talking over with the city manager. We see really no use for that piece. I would recommend that we surplus it.
Thank you, sir.
Other questions? I have one. Without seeing the map again, that land abuts our property at the treatment center. Is that correct?
Correct.
I see no reason in this world to get rid of it. Who knows when we may need something down the line. I know we had some issues we had to jump through to enlarge the sewer plant the last time. I see no reason to get rid of this land. Further questions or comments?
Just looking at the map, you were talking about the gate being at the far end. I guess that would be on the west end of the property. If that's where the gate is, where you keep the gravel and stuff in there.
Yeah, it's about 2/3 of the way down the north. You can kind of see the little gate things on the. It's hard.
Okay.
But yeah, it's about 2/3 of the way down. There's a gate that accesses into where our drying beds are for our solids.
Okay. So where the red line is, that's the owned by Seneca on the map.
The red line strip that, if I'm understanding, is the strip that is the ports. That's adjacent part of to the Seneca property.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? So as I'm looking at this, I really had to search to find it. I zoomed in on my phone while the city manager was talking on Google Maps, and I had to search to find that segment of street. From the satellite view is the only way I could find it. It didn't even show up labeled as Otis Avenue on Google Maps. It makes sense. There's no way we're ever going to extend an industrial heavy use street into a residential neighborhood. There would be no benefit to anybody from doing that. Seneca is going to continue to use that property, or the new owner of that property is going to continue to use that. I, however, tend to agree with Councilor Farmer on this, that I really feel better keeping the city's options open on this one. I guess I would be in favor of a long-term lease, but I don't know that it's necessarily in the city's best interest to relinquish control. I know we have easements and that sort of thing to do maintenance and to have access to our property. But down the line, I don't want to get to where that 30 feet is something that's really something we wish we still had. So, you know, as I'm thinking long term, I guess that's the direction I'm going right now. Other comments or questions before we move on to the next item?
So are we being asked to approve the annexation? No, I'm sorry, the confused with the annexation, but any long-term lease or call this for surplus?
Councilor Hardy, I think at this point, all we're asked to do is talk about it and discuss some options.
Okay.
That's correct, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The idea tonight was to see if council needed any further information from staff about the property or the way we've been using it or the way that Seneca is using it. And if there was any further research that would be helpful to council in making a decision before we bring this back to you at a future council meeting for action.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Any further comments from council members on this item before we move on to the next item?
I could look, but I would personally like to see it surplus as well. There's just no reason for it to continue, but that's just my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. All right, moving on to the next item. Item from council members, mayor's appointments to boards and commissions. The mayor gave me no information on any of that, so we will move that on to the next week. Council request status report, Mr. City Manager.
All right. Oh, and Mr. Deputy Mayor, just for council's awareness, the mayor, of course, is on vacation right now. But I did receive a phone call. We did have a contact from an individual who is interested potentially in the planning commission vacancy and plans to try to connect with the mayor about that vacancy when the mayor gets back into town. On the council request status report, we only have updates on a few items. No change or new information on the disabled parking lot other than what Director Fisher provided to you and we sent forward to you in the weekly brief here a couple weeks ago, that we have submitted our application for this cycle of funding from the AARP, and we'll be waiting to find out if we've met their kind of threshold requirements for submission of a full proposal, hopefully here in hearing back sometime here in the next month or so. On the tree replacement plan, council's aware we've been working to kind of prepare for this summer's replacement work that's involved some stump grinding and so forth. We're doing that both in the sidewalks and in some of the city parking lots where we've had stumps that we've needed to remove. So that activity is really the only visible element going on now, but Director Fisher will be bringing back more information on the potential replacement trees later this spring, early summer. On the guardrails, as council is aware, this developed into the need to come up with a safety plan in order to qualify for DOT funding for this kind of a project. Council authorized us to move forward with that safety plan earlier this year, and that is just now getting underway through the contracted provider, which is it's HLA, correct, Shane?
That's correct.
Okay. No new updates or information related to homelessness, other than that we continue to monitor for an eventual ruling from the state Supreme Court on the Long v. Seattle case that would affect cities' abilities to regulate homeless encampments and vehicle encampments. We provided an update previously on the current status of the residential volunteer program and the progress in construction going on at the fire station. That's moving forward. And I don't know that there's been any change in status on either the police reserves, and of course we reported back in March on the outcomes from the Roger Brooks. And Director Alba has been working with the finance supervisor, Delilah Sines, to prepare a listing of active grant applications. And we're looking to provide that either as part of the monthly reports to council once we get that finalized. I think that's all we have for council status report.
Hearing none. Moving on to item C, other reports, announcements, and/or questions by council. I will ask the city clerk to go down the list and give everybody the opportunity to make their announcements or ask their questions. Madam City Clerk.
Counselor Farmer,
Weeds on the parking lot on 7th Street. They're completely out of control.
Counselor Hicks,
I've had a lot of people ask me if we can do a cleanup day. Other towns have been doing it. We've been on lockdown for a year now, so people have got bored at home and started cleaning up stuff and looking for a place to dump it.
And actually, Councilor Hicks, the Finance Director Alba has been working with our permit technician, with Debbie Espinoza. Because of physical distancing and some of the limitations around that, they are trying to come up with a COVID adjustment. They're in conversations with Yakima Waste and with transfer stations around possibly providing vouchers. And I know they're trying to get that put together here fairly soon to be able to do that in either late spring or early summer. And we'll have an update on that for you hopefully soon. But yes, we do want to provide some sort of cleanup option for residents.
Majid?
Counselor Henry,
No other comments or questions. Okay,
Counselor Hart,
Well, Councilor Hicks, I'm glad you asked about the cleanup because I have a big roll of yard waste out in front of the house that I don't have a pickup for. Anybody wants to help me with that, that'd be wonderful. So I'm glad that we're going to do some sort of a cleanup. I know that Grandview had one this past Saturday, and I was having another one this coming Saturday. I'm not exactly sure how they're doing as far as COVID goes, but I'm excited that we're going to have one in our community. Because our community is really, well, we've got a lot of debris out there blowing around. Of course, with the winds, that really helped a lot. So I'm just wondering, as far as the parks, how are we coming with getting the parks under control? As the weeds this year are going to be bad, we had a really mild winter, so the weeds didn't die off the way they're supposed to. And they're already growing up over my ankles everywhere I go. So are we doing something with the parks maintenance?
So we are just completing our onboarding process for the seasonal workers that we bring on board to assist with parks maintenance. I forget the exact figures, but I believe we end up mowing something like several hundred acres a month just with the city parks. And so it is almost a full-time engagement for one of our seasonal workers to get out and get ahead of that. Shane, can you provide some further detail on that?
No, that was actually a great job. Yeah, basically we mow about 80 to 85 a week. So we mow our parks every week. It takes a while in the spring to get going and we've got a lot of cleanup going on. So the seasonal guys, we only have 2 on so far. We plan on bringing on 4 to 5. So we're not even fully staffed yet for seasonal. So right now, places like Sunnyview Park, South Hill Park, and Central Park, that's growing. And it's growing like it's the middle of summer. So we're having a hard time just keeping up with those parks right now until our other seasonals get here. So it'll be another couple of weeks before we're fully seasonally staffed.
Councilor Restucci?
And thank you. Just one item, Mr. City Manager, in your report last week, or actually maybe it was just an email that you sent to council, there were some concerns about staffing the pool and whether or not we were going to open or what was going to go on. So I'm wondering if we can have that conversation.
So yes, and actually I had that queued up to share in the city manager's report as well in last week's weekly brief to council. Normally we hire between 25 and 35 seasonal employees to perform lifeguard duties at the pool and other functions. With the requirements that we've shared with council from the state regarding how to operate pools this year, there are quite a few additional expectations that are in place for how we distance, how we staff, how we maintain sanitizing and so forth at the pool. But what we're hearing and what we're experiencing is by now we would normally have about 20 to 30 applicants being vetted and getting ready to go through their training to begin gearing up in mid-May. We have only 6 applicants to date. And we're hearing that this is an issue throughout the valley, that none of the pools are seeing the kind of interest in pool work this summer that they would normally see, and are all struggling with coming up with the adequate staffing to be able to open their pools. We've heard that some cities are considering not opening at all, and we're hoping to avoid that by seeing if we can partner with some other cities that have pools in the nearby area and that kind of draw from the same I started to say same pool, sorry, no pun intended, but the same candidate pool, so to speak. And so our finance director, Elizabeth Alba, is meeting with her counterparts from the cities of Prosser and Grandview a little later this week to pursue potentially collaborating on staffing that could be shared among the 3 jurisdictions in the hopes of being able to field enough staff, qualified and trained staff, to be able to at least open each city's pool on a rotational or limited basis. We haven't gotten very far in that discussion. We're also hearing from some of the organized swim teams in the area that this is an issue well beyond just Yakima County. They're hearing challenges in getting municipal pools open and meeting the obligations they have to be able to conduct swim meets safely and effectively. So still trying to kind of put together how we would go forward with that, but that's the information we have at this time.
Thank you, sir. A follow-up, Mr. Deputy Mayor, since you're connected with the swim team, what is their concerns, or have they been addressed yet or not?
I know the swim team is paying very close attention to what the city is doing, watching very carefully to see if our pool will be open and if they'll be allowed to swim. They were asking me early on already at the beginning of this year. I haven't spoken with them recently. Obviously, there's going to be concern about staffing as far as lifeguards and that sort of thing, because it is required that lifeguards be present during swim meets and practices. So I have not honestly had a chance to contact anybody about this. and see where they're going with this.
Thank you.
But I
sir.
can certainly make an effort to do so.
And,
Thanks.
Mr. Deputy Mayor and Councilor Stucci, I know Elizabeth has been in touch with Peavy, Peavley, I think that's, I'm sorry if I'm not remembering his name correctly, with our lead contact from the swim team, and has been in pretty close contact with him, including this month.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. My last question, sir, would be to the city manager, and that is, what would be our drop dead date when we would have to make a decision?
We haven't really given ourselves that kind of a deadline yet. Our target had been to reopen the pool for general public use by mid-June. We knew that was going to be a little bit challenging. If we can get staff, basically get the staffing issue figured out by mid-May, hopefully we should then be able to complete the necessary training, certifications, and so forth. That's part of the other advantage of going, hopefully, through a partnership approach, is because each of the different cities has certain different components in place, and may have access to somebody on their staff who has a particular certification and so forth. So I think we'll probably be in a good position to make an informed decision, hopefully by council's meeting on May 10th. But we'll certainly update you if we get any different information.
Thank you, gentlemen. That's all I have, sir.
Councillor Henry? Oh, yeah, you did. I'm sorry. Deputy Mayor Broersma.
Thank you. Yeah, if council will remember, some months ago, I was lobbying very strongly to reopen the lobby at City Hall. I felt we weren't providing the best of service to the community by forcing community members to stay in the, I'm not sure what to call that, breezeway, the space between the two entry doors of City Hall in order to pay their water bill. Seeing as other stores in the community, such as Safeway, Ace Hardware, Walmart, and others have been able to be open during the entire pandemic with plexiglass screens between them and the store personnel, and there has been no big outbreaks. I was a big fan of opening that. Thankfully, I was glad to see that our lobby did open. But I'm going to read a partial Facebook post from a very well-known member of our community whose name I'm not going to read. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's seen this. But this individual says the following: it is getting more and more frustrating as people and companies use COVID as an excuse to not do their jobs. Yesterday and this morning put me over the top. I go to the City of Sunnyside Building Department to inquire about a building permit. I had sent 3 emails previously with no response. I go to the office at 2 p.m. The door is locked. The sign says open Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Obviously, this individual is quite angry about the situation. One of the things that I just want to make very clear is that we as city council and city staff exist to serve our community. And when we publish hours of operation, we need to stand by those. I don't know why the door was locked, but at least in the door, a sign saying temporarily closed due to something, or advising that it was going to be closed, would be helpful. It has kind of been my feeling throughout this entire pandemic as well that there have been many companies and government agencies, not in the city of Sunnyside necessarily, but Yakima County and the state of Washington for sure, that have used this as an excuse not to staff their offices at all and have rendered, in some cases, very poor service to the public. I don't want Sunnyside to be like that. I want us to render absolutely excellent service to our community through this, and maybe even better because there's a pandemic going on. So that is just my comment based on a Facebook post. I'm not inviting or not requiring anybody to respond to that, but it was something that came to my attention, and other people have mentioned it to me as well. And so felt that I could share that here this evening.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments, and we'll follow up with the planning department.
Okay, Madam City Clerk, was that the entire list? All right. Item D, upcoming council meetings. Mr. City Manager.
All right, good evening. We have next week our May 3rd workshop presentation. We have 2 items currently scheduled for that. As council may be aware, the legislature adjourned their regular session for 21 on Sunday, yesterday. And so I'm working to provide kind of a comprehensive overview of some of the major legislation that will be affecting cities. Some of this is already known. Some of it is still a little uncertain because the governor has a couple of weeks to make decisions on whether to sign certain bills into law or to veto them. And so we may not have complete information on exactly which bills will become law, but I think we'll have a pretty good sense of the potential issues that we'll be looking at. Also provide a little bit of an update with what happened with the state's operating and capital budgets. May 10th, we have our regular meeting. Public Works Director Fisher is, we're currently soliciting for vendors to complete the work that we were directed to do by the Federal Aviation Administration for Airport Master Plan, and expect to be able to bring a recommendation forward for a contract award on that project. Council will recall this is going to be entirely funded for the city by the federal government, the FAA, under the American Rescue Plan Act. And then the second item we have currently on that agenda is follow on to your conversation tonight about the Otis Avenue right-of-way. And if you do choose to sell it, we would have an executive session for the purposes of setting a price. If you choose to enter into a long-term lease, then we might not need that executive session. We'll go over that discussion with the mayor and so forth and get that ready for you. Coming up at the end of May, probably one of our biggest projects that will be coming for this year. We're scheduled to come back to you for award of the construction contract for the Midvale Road improvements from Duffy up to the I-82 interchange. This will be funded, the city's share of this project will be funded from the Transportation Benefit District dollars. Couple of other items coming up, but right now the end of May is a little light, but we expect that'll fill up a little more as we continue to see activity coming in, to city offices and programs. That concludes schedule.
Okay, apparently I wasn't heard when I said that last time. Items from the city manager and department head.
Oh, okay, sorry, thank you, sir. All right, I just have one short update related to COVID activities. Yakima County today reached 30,320 COVID-19 cases. Good news is that we have only 9 residents hospitalized, although our total number of deaths, we added 4 deaths over the weekend, so we've risen to 406. We are currently in phase 3 of the state's reopening framework. In order to move forward or back a phase, the state evaluates us, of course, on 2 metrics, our new case counts and hospitalizations. The state will next evaluate and announce the status of counties next Monday on May 3rd. In terms of vaccination, nearly 70,000 first doses and nearly 50,000 second doses of vaccine have been administered in Yakima County. The Yakima Sundome FEMA mass vaccine site has delivered 25,000 doses alone since opening, and medical providers in the area report pretty stable access to both the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines. Health officials are encouraging folks who may have waited for broader eligibility criteria. Now is the time to get vaccinated. And the Yakima Health District is open to working with large farms and other employers who would like to bring in one of their mobile vaccine clinics as well. Kind of stepping big picture, Washington State has now passed about 368,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and 5,450 deaths. The United States as a whole has passed 32 million cases and 572,000 deaths. Although we are in a little better shape right now in terms of current infection rates and hospitalizations compared to many other parts of the world, cases are rising extremely rapidly in India, which is currently averaging over 300,000 new cases a day, as well as Brazil, parts of Europe, Asia. City of Tokyo just went back on a COVID lockdown just 3 months before the scheduled start of the Tokyo Olympics. And the current death toll worldwide has passed 3.1 million. With that, I'll turn it over to some of the department heads. We'll kind of maybe see who's already, I know earlier, Finance Director Alba had sent a message saying she might not be able to be on voice tonight. So I'll maybe start with Public Works Director Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Casey. Yeah, I have a couple items here. Street staff will be starting painting the green boxes around the EV charging stations. They're on 5th Street. We didn't get those painted last year because we ran out of good weather, and so we went ahead and held off. So there'll be those boxes. We're going to paint everything green, so each stall will be completely green with a white EV charging station stencil in the middle of it, and so it should look pretty sharp. We sent out an RFP for Crescent Avenue. We have a large tree up on Crescent that wasn't our tree. We didn't plant it there, but it grew there, and now it's problematic. It's dead. It's an old ash tree, and so we will be receiving bids this week from tree vendors based on that RFP. And so city staff will be shutting the road down. Be another couple of weeks before we actually do the work. But when we do get the work going, we will shut the street down, and it will take approximately 2 days to remove the tree. And it'll be an extensive removal, and we'll also grind the stump out to about 6 to 12 inches below grade. We'll finish it back over and throw some grass seed in there and get the grass growing again for the residents in that area. And I'm sure everybody saw the emails that went out today in the press releases on the bridge damage out in East Edison, and be calling DOT tomorrow to talk with their maintenance and engineering divisions. Try to get them down here to take a quick look at it and see what we need to do to get that repaired. And so we'll be sending notices out and keep you informed as we know more. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Chief Anderson, any updates?
Good evening. No, I have nothing new right now.
All right. Commander Bailey, are you still available?
Yes, sir.
Anything to report for the police department? Or I should probably mention, I apologize, I should have mentioned for council's awareness, Chief Escalera is at a FBI LEDA training, and I'm Law Enforcement Development Academy. Is that right?
The FBI National Academy.
Yes. As part of his ongoing training and development. So he's at that this evening. He'll be there most of this week. So sorry, please go ahead, Commander Bailey.
I have a couple of items. Mr. Deputy Mayor and Council, we have Officers Christensen and Juarez graduated from the Basic Law Enforcement Academy in Burien on April 19th. Both have begun their FTO or field training coaching cycle, and we're expecting good things from them, as well as Officers Withers and Schultes, two lateral officers that were hired last month. They are proceeding well through their field training process, and considering that they're lateral officers, which means that they were existing officers before they came to us, their program moves much faster than the graduates from the Basic Law Enforcement Academy. They're both doing very well, and I'm anticipating probably mid-month next month that they will be off of their coaching trips. Additionally, last month, Civil Service approved the latest entry-level eligibility list for new hires for police officer positions, and our detectives have begun the background process on several of those candidates. And finally, as of June 30th of 2021, all police officers within the state of Washington, all certified police officers within the state of Washington, are required to complete crisis intervention training. And through the department, we are currently on track to be completed by then. We only have 5 individuals that have yet to complete the training, but they are scheduled to do so within the next, they should be completed by the end of May instead of going into June. So all in all, we're on track with the state requirements, and things are moving well. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, sir. And Clerk Renteria, any updates?
I have none right now, but I do want to remind Deputy Mayor about Mayor's absence, what council would like to do about that.
Oh, good point. I believe he had requested an excused absence at the last meeting, but I don't know that council acted on that tonight.
No, and I thank you for that, Madam City Clerk. I did omit that. So what is council's desire with the absence of the mayor? I believe he did request an excused absence. Does anyone have a problem with excusing his absence this evening?
Not at all.
No objection to that? All right, then the mayor is excused this evening, and I do apologize for my missing that.
That's okay.
All right, there being no other business to come before this council this evening, and without objection, I adjourn this meeting tonight at 8:10 p.m. Good night, everybody. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you. Good night, all.
Good night, everyone.